Hey, welcome. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Tournament Talk, where we'll be breaking down the most recent Okie Division BFL on Lake Eufaula. It was a good tournament. Let's talk about it a little bit. This tournament happened on Saturday, April 29th, and we launched out of South Point there, right in Eufaula. It was a cold morning. I think it was about 40 degrees. It had rained all night, thunderstorms, lightning, wind. Lots of wind. The lake on Saturday was real rough, beat me up. Just the boat ride across the lake was pretty tough. Water when we launched was about 58 degrees, warmed up to about 62, 63 by the end of the day, but still pretty cold. You know, the weather here in Oklahoma still doesn't know what it wants to do this year. And that, of course, had the fish in all three phases of the spawn again. So they were spread out and all over, but pretty predictable. And overall, it was a pretty good tournament, not only for me, but for everybody. The winning boater was Bradley Sullivan with 17 pounds and 6 ounces. He had a really good day. From what I understand, he ran up the river and caught him on reaction baits. The big bass for the boater side was Dalton Ross at 5 pounds and 12 ounces. So a really good, healthy fish. I'm not sure what he caught that one on. And then on the co-angler side, Blake Dominguez won it with 12 pounds and 10 ounces. So pretty good weight for a co. I figured that's about where it needed to be. I said 13 pounds was probably going to win it, I think. And then the big bass for the co-angler side was Stephen Logan at 6 pounds and 12 ounces. So another co-angler beating out a boater on big bass. I like that. So, from the back of the boat, I always like to give support to other guys that are standing in the back too, because it's tough back there. For me, I had a good tournament. I weighed 4 fish for 9 pounds. I was really looking for that 5th fish all day, but 9 pounds got me in 7th place, so another top 10. It was nice coming off the win at Table Rock. I was feeling really confident. I had a game plan in mind, depending upon what my boater wanted to do. My boater did pretty well, actually. He finished 52nd. So oddly enough, he weighed 4 for 9 pounds as well. So we made a pretty good team, bringing in 18 pounds or so together. So although we don't weigh them together, it's individual. So still a lot of fun, and we were catching them 2 entirely different ways. So it made for a really interesting experience out there on the water. So we'll talk about that. Initially, what I was hearing was you were looking for scattered boulders, scattered larger rock on secondary points, and those boulders need to be sitting on sand. Eufaula is a real flat, pretty shallow lake. It's not your highland type impoundment. It's more of a lowland impoundment. So there's a lot of shallow areas, a lot of areas of just plain sand that I didn't feel would produce much. So we took off and went under the Highway 9 bridge and got into a place called Longview and went to work on a windblown bank, kind of a secondary point that worked its way back into a cut. And we weren't the only people that had that idea. I think there were 4 or 5 other boats back there. We were flight 5, and with the waves and the wind out on the lake, we took things slow. So no reason to flip a boat over out there. So we got in and had some room, and we got to work. I put my first 3 keepers in the boat before 8:45 in the morning, and my boater had hooked up with 2 short fish. And then he decided that we were going to go change and do something different at about 9:30. And I'll talk about what I was cranking and things at the end of this. So he was, my boater he grew up on the Arkansas River and grew up flipping, and he has an amazing roll cast. He can put a jig or a Texas rig back up under a dock or in a slip or in between the boat and the slip. I mean, from 30 feet, just every shot. I mean, he worked it. And accurate. So that didn't leave me really any targets. When we went to fishing docks, which is what he wanted to transition to, so we were looking for docks over sand. Not really what I wanted to do, but needed to make the most of what we were doing. So as the day had moved on, the sun had gotten up, the clouds had burned off, the wind was still a major player, but at least it was warming up. We ended the days in the upper 60s. So, at least it was warm enough. I was shedding some layers. And I thought that, with that high sun and things, that it may bring some fish up. As we got back in there and looking around, I did not see any fish on beds. Didn't see any beds. So I don't know. With the visibility we had, it was about 12 to 18 inches for water viz. So I don't know if they were just bedding deeper than we could see with the water the way that it looked, or if it was still early. Water temperatures are still pretty cold. Weather's still doing a lot of crazy stuff. So I'm not sure really where the fish at in that mid lake zone that we were fishing. I'm not sure that they were actually pushed up and spawning yet. I don't know what the water temperatures were leading into this tournament, but if they had been sub 60s, right around that high 50s mark, and we're just getting into the warming trend, then I could see that would bring fish in, which is, I think, really what was going on. I don't think those fish were pulling back out yet. I think the ones that I was catching early in the day, they were fish that were kind of moved up and staged to push up and spawn. Because I didn't see much bait, I didn't see any fry, so I wasn't feeling that bedding bite, which is what my boater wanted to go do. So at about 9:30 we went on the search, and we spent the day flipping, and I was just junk fishing. I had on a shaky head, I had on a drop shot, I had on a wacky rig, and those were just kind of like my 3 dragon baits behind the boat. I had a crankbait and a chatterbait. And as we progressed into the afternoon for that last hour, I just kind of put that chatterbait in my hands and started throwing at the dock ends and the slips and things, really just working it and popping it and cranking it, just trying to get a reaction bite, hoping that I had a big fish that might be sitting out under one of those slips. And at like 3:04, I hooked up with like a 3-pounder, which gave me my 4th fish for the day. Came right on a boat slip that my boater had just flipped, and I was ripping that bait through there. I was working it really quick, really really erratic, and that fish just came up and smoked it. Short hit me. He was right at the side of the boat, so really lucky that I landed that fish. My boater grabbed his chatterbait, flipped back into the same slip, caught a short fish that didn't weigh, and we were out of time and had to boogie. So we got back in, weighed in at our check-in time was at 3:30. We went to scales, and like I said, I ended up waiting around to cash a check. So pretty happy about that. Let's talk more specifically about baits. As I mentioned, I caught that last fish on a chatterbait, and there were a lot of guys that did really well in the tournament fishing a chatterbait and a spinnerbait, especially the guys that ran up the river. I think their winning bag was caught on a chatterbait. Don't quote me on that. You know how guys are with what they're catching them on. Most of us lie at the podium, but I did hear chatterbait being talked about quite a bit, and spinnerbaits. So I think the key takeaway for me, what I found, was it was a reaction bite. I drug a lot of slow baits, bottom baits, worms, things like that around. I never once got a bite all day on a slow moving bait. Everything I got came on a reaction bait. So what I was throwing as far as chatterbait goes, with the water clarity and everything that we had, is I was throwing just a 1/2 ounce jackhammer, and I just got a Yamamoto Seiko. I think that's a pearl shad on there, and that's just their chartreuse and white jackhammer. And for you guys that I bass on a budget. I mean, let's just be realistic about that. You don't see me talking about $25 Megabass jerk baits and things very often. I do have a few and I do fish them, but I don't think that because you spend $25 or $17 on a lure that it's just going to automatically catch fish. And you shouldn't think like that either. You can catch plenty of fish on lures that don't cost it so much. You don't have to always buy top of the line things, especially if you're just learning. Pick up those $5 to $7 chatterbaits, learn how to use them, learn how they feel, learn how to set the hook and play your fish. You're going to lose you're going to lose some. So better lose a $5 lure while you're learning how to use it instead of losing a $15 lure. Now you might sacrifice some bites in that learning curve, but that's kind of the trade-off. Okay. Now, of course, as you probably know, chatterbait is just kind of a cast and reel bait, a cast and crank, so to speak. However, I was imparting a lot of action into that bait. As I would reel this bait in, I would pop my rod, right? I'd pop that rod tip, right? I'd give it an extra crank, so I'd be reeling along, and I'd crank, and that causes that bait to chase and move around, and that was really key in getting them to bite. And I learned that early in the morning on my crankbait bite. Now, let's talk about that. Is it covered up? You're damn right it is. This bait, I was getting so much action on this bait as far as fish that when we'd come around other boaters and my boater would want to talk to them, I would literally hold my rod about a foot, foot and a half, my rod tip under the water so that other boaters and co-anglers in other boats couldn't see this bait. Now, it's a crankbait, right? What's so special about a crankbait? Crankbaits run different, manufacturer to manufacturer. If they got rattles in them, they're going to sound different, different frequency, different vibration. There's a difference between your crankbait manufacturers. And this particular manufacturer, this bait has just been a staple bait for me this year as far as a crankbait goes. I've been out fishing this bait on Grand, I've fished it on Table Rock, I've fished it down at Eufaula, and I'll talk to a lot of guys who are cranking and just not getting fish. I'm getting fish on this bait. So I'm a little bit hesitant to talk about it, but you know what? If it's working for me and it works for you and it brings a smile to your face and give you an extra fish for the day, then it's all worth it. There are no secrets out here. It's just about spending time on the water. And my time on the water with this bait in my hand has proven to be very, very effective. Now, I haven't always been fishing this color. This color I actually put on 2 Saturdays ago on Grand, and it just started knocking them out of the park. So I kept that color going into Eufaula because of the water clarity. I felt that it was just going to be the right color. And the crankbait that I have been having such great success on is right here. Okay, this little fella is called the Cotton Cordell Big O. All right, it's a tight wobbling little square bill. Okay, runs about, I can get it to 6 feet. Okay, now I'm cranking it on 12-pound fluoro. This is Seagar and Vizex, and this bait has just got a really, can you hear that? It's got a really unique rattle sound to it. Now, I think that this bait is so effective is, the reasoning I think it's so effective is that it's something that the bass around here don't see a whole lot of. Now you think, come on, Jason, bass in Oklahoma, haven't seen a crankbait? Huh. What I mean by that is this is a cheapie. You want to talk about bassing on a budget? This crankbait right here, this little effective crankbait, which I have caught at least a dozen keepers on in the last 2 weeks. $2.67. You can buy a 3-pack of them for like $7.50. Okay, and there's a color called olive craw. I think I've talked about it before. It's got an olive back and an orange belly. Man, I tell you what, that can be lights out if they're really cueing in on the crayfish bite. Now for me, that chartreuse blueback, that was the money. That put fish in the boat for me real quick in the morning. And I think if we would have stayed on that crankbait bite or on that rocky bite, I think I would have had a limit and I would have been culling fish by 11. Just didn't work out that way. My boater wanted to go flip docks. And when you're in the back of the boat, ultimately you got to do what the boater wants to do. But you know what? Able to capitalize on it, pulled the 4th fish off the dock, so it gave me 9 pounds. I'm happy with that. Didn't get any trinkets for the wall, but you know what? Got a pretty good check to put in the bank. So can't complain. And on to the next. That's how it goes in this world. So we are in the tackle room today, and we are prepping for Table Rock. I'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. But, it's only been 2 weeks since I won at Table Rock, so I can't imagine that the bite's going to be too different. I think it's probably going to be drop shot. That's, you can bet your ass I'll be fishing a drop shot. But we'll talk about that in the next video that I post about tournament talk for that tournament. So again, thanks for tuning in. Give me a like and a subscribe and a follow. Tell your friends about me. And again, if you got questions about your home lakes, originally I'm from Colorado. I grew up fishing Colorado. I'm a farm pond guy, kicking bushes, walking banks. I didn't put myself in a bass boat until about 10 years ago. So If you want to shoot me a private message, find me, you can comment here, ask me questions. If you got a lake at home you want some information on, you just want to pick my brain, or, you got a fishing trip coming up and you want to know what I would fish in that area, leave me a comment, ask me a question, find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram. Let's talk about it. Until then, fans, keep fishing.